Good evening, Tony Dattino here. All of a sudden, I'm looking at the clouds out here. I'm back in Windermere, Florida, as you can see from my background. Back in from New York. I did tear a couple of items in my rotator cuff, and I'm going for physical therapy now, and that's helped a bit. So I got some swimming in today, and my goodness, it's 5 o'clock, and here I am doing my Live with Tony in the 5 o'clock hour from Windermere, Florida. But the clouds are getting dark. We've got some good-sized gators in our pond in the backyard, but it's nice to be back doing my Live with Tony's here, and I find the internet connection here, the laptop I use here, a little bit better and more efficient than some of the craziness that was going on while I was up in New York. I am not a techie, as anybody that knows me can figure out, and so it's got to be simple and basic for me. So I get these little curveballs every once in a while, and I go crazy. So, but I'm back, and I'm doing lots of reading. So as you know, I come back. I had like 5 weeks worth of mail, and I've got articles that I want to share with you over the next couple of weeks that I think are all fantastic. But one I was reading yesterday was comes out of the current issue, it comes out of the May 22nd issue of New Scientist magazine. And I love this one because it talks about what happens when you're moving. We keep talking about one of the elements of brain health is exercise. And when we begin to think about exercising, we don't need to be thinking about exercise like we're getting ready for a marathon race, or that we've got to be, a muscle builder or something of that sort. What I really loved about this particular article is the way you move your body. So the way you move, you can be walking, you can be picking up your walking, you can be racing or running. They've gotten science now that really changes what happens to your brain and how it impacts your creativity, how it might impact your memory, overall what it does in terms of changing the flow of oxygen to your brain. And it's been fascinating because what we do know is our brain is using about a quarter of the oxygen that we are breathing in. What we also know is aerobic activity, as well as anaerobic activity, has altering impacts on the oxygen that's coming to your brain. Now, that in itself is fascinating because what it's been interesting to me is one of our mental athletes, who's a 4-time USA memory champion, tells me in one of our events that when he was mountain climbing Mount Everest in Nepal, he noticed that as he climbed higher up in the mountain, he could practice going through the order of a deck of cards, and he'd do it much faster. Now that's interesting because you're going up the mountain and getting to breathe is, I guess, harder. You got to be better prepared, oxygen. And yet his memory was working that much quicker. I've had a Navy SEAL champion, Ron White. So Nelson Dellis was my 4-time champion I'm talking about. And then Ronnie White, I always remember Ronnie talking about jumping into a swimming pool and practicing as he did his memory practices with swimming pools and how that changes the oxygen levels in a brain. I've read on creativity, a lot of Japanese innovators. They swim with notepads, with boards, with the ability to write. They swim underwater and they jot down a lot of their creative ideas while they're swimming underwater. Years ago, people thought this was crazy. And even today, I'm sure a lot of you that may be listening may think of this as crazy. But what you have to remember is the connection of the brain and oxygen. And if you just think of how you alter the oxygen levels to our brain, what that does not only to our aerobic and physical ability to perform, or lack thereof if we're tired, we're puffing and puffing, but what it does to our mental. So again, when we think of jogging or exercising aerobically, we think more of the physical benefits of it. But here's an article that comes along and suggests, whoa, there's mental benefits, and there's science now that starts to peel this back. So I'm going to take you through these this week. So this week's session is going to be mind-altering moves and what's happening as we go through these different steps. Because here's 6 ways to shift your brain into a different gear. And that's an interesting concept in itself. But evidence is stacking up, and it isn't all about doing more exercise. We explore the research in biology, physiology, neuroscience, and cell biology to find out why body movements affect the mind and how. So I need you to think about that, right? The science is telling us today, and the science here is biology, physiology, neuroscience, and cell biology, as to which body movements affect the mind. So what body movements affect the mind, and why, and what their impacts are. Whatever it is that you want from your mind, whether you want more creativity, or improved resilience, or more self-esteem, the evidence we now have shows that there is a way of moving the body in different aspects and in different ways that help. It helps your creativity. I already shared with you one of the things I did when I worked with the Department of Homeland Security in Brownsville, Texas. I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and run 3 miles on the Gulf of Mexico on the beach. And I would come back at 7 o'clock and get to my hotel room, and I'd write down a lot of answers and solutions to a lot of the things we were doing in terms of fixing some of the challenges that we were facing on the border with the men and women that have to deal with that. So creativity. Improved resilience. Well, we obviously know the physicality of our own bodies require oxygen, and oxygen is being fed throughout the whole body. But how many people realize that a quarter of that oxygen is being consumed by our brain? So when you're in problem-solving mode, when you're in creative mode, when you're in trying to retain information, it's fascinating about the resilience that we have and our ability to think better. I always remember reading years ago in one of the journals I have where the great chess players that want to compete in the world global events, they do several hours of physical training as part of the practice of preparing for a chess match. Now, how many people think about preparing in a gym for a chess match? And what they discovered is that the more physically fit they have, the stronger their brain is able to work, the purer the oxygen is, and the strategy then is to create a chess match, which is just a marathon, because the competitors, over a period of time, will tire out quicker and thus make a mistake or not make the best move possible. And I practiced, I exercised, and I'm much more alert and ready to go, and I win the national, world, global memory chess match competition. That gets me thinking about our mental athletes. One of the things I'm in the early stages of is looking at a company called Pure Light, which helps to improve the oxygen in a room. And one of the things I want to study is the differences with this Pure light bulb and treatments, titanium dioxide. What happens to the oxygen levels, and could it impact the thinking capacity of people in the room during this change of oxygen? So here we go. If you want more creativity, improved resilience, and higher self-esteem, the evidence shows there is a way of moving the body that helps you. So here are some of the best ways to use your body to achieve a healthier and better functioning mind. I mean, this is amazing. So by how we move will dictate what happens to our mind. It's not news that walking and running helps clear the mind. Boy, they recommend over and over again. In fact, about a month ago, they did it live with Tony talking about walking after dinner just for 5 minutes helps clear the sugar levels that you may have in your bloodstream and changes your glucose levels. Just 5 minutes. Now, who keeps coming up with these things? And so here we go. It's not new news that walking and running clears the mind. Now, why does it do that? The research into the reasons why suggests that different speeds now of running and or walking provide different mental benefits. So if you're walking, a light jog, picking up the pace to where you're forcing more oxygen through your lungs, it makes a change to the way your mind is working. Running or walking at a pace that feels easy allows the mind to wander by reducing activity in the prefrontal region of the brain. So we're going to take it easy. We're not going to push ourselves too far. And it frees up activity in the prefrontal regions of the brain. And these areas favor rational thinking, and studies suggest that reducing their activity allows more creativity to flow. So the translation there is just do something that's not forcing you to work extra harder or hard. It's allowing you to free up space in the brain for it to go focus on something else. So I have a regular route that I run in my Windermere, Florida area, and I go around the ponds and they make peat frigators. But as I'm running, how often I'm coming back from a run and I'm thinking of some of the issues and challenges that I've had during the course of the previous week or that I'm trying to work on for the current week. And I'm coming back with some new ideas and things I can do, and it reduces my stress levels. So here the science is suggesting that the effects that you have by walking at a pace or running that allows your mind to wander, meaning I don't need my focus on this, and my brain can wander, it will help me to find more creative ideas of something I may be working on. And the effects spill over for at least 15 minutes after you've finished. And this is according to Stanford University. A walk before an ideas meeting. Now you're going to have a meeting before ideas. Send everybody out for a walk. Don't make it overly strenuous. Don't have them come back sweating. But it allows more ideas. So there is a catch. Walkers may perform worse in tests of straightforward linear problem solving compared with those that just sat down and remained seated. So there's a benefit to creativity if we have people go out and do a walk that doesn't demand that they focus on what they're doing in their walk. They don't need to follow a map in terms of directions, versus those that sat if we're going to just go in a linear, straightforward way. That's the first segment that I want to talk about, which is get on your feet. Get on your feet. This has got just fascinating information that this has, but there's a starting point for you. So think about your own exercise routines and your own walks and your own pace, and just pay attention as you are doing your own walk or going up and down steps, and where your brain is at, and whether or not you're just in what I call robotic mode. I liken it to people who know how to drive to their work locations or go to a grocery store, and they just get in a car and somehow they show up at where they need to be, and they haven't been consciously focused on exactly what they have to do. Or in my case, sometimes I wind up going in the wrong direction because I wasn't consciously focused. I was thinking of something else. So that's just the start. I think this is going to be a great week. We're going to see you back on Wednesday in the 5 o'clock hour, but I am really excited of sharing with you this issue of New Scientist magazine on getting to move. Have a good week. It is starting to rain and lightning here, and that's when I usually like to shut the computers down and pull out a few of the plugs here. So everybody be safe. I see we've got storms going across the country. And by the way, you can pick these broadcasts up not only on Facebook, but on YouTube. I have Tina Datino, who is taking the time, and I really appreciate, taking my Facebook broadcast and also converting them over to YouTube, so we can get a broader audience of folks. And pay attention to our USA Memory Championship website. August 7th is our upcoming virtual memory competition, and people are signing up, and it should be an exciting afternoon of virtual memory competition on August the 7th.